All right. On this week's episode of the Mental Edge Podcast, your hosts,
Fernando Lopez Jr.
and Jay Casey, interview the amazing
Tom Dreesen.
Put it on speaker.
Tom Dreesen.
Tom.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy. This is Jay and Fernando from the
Jay and
MentalEdge.
Fernando, can you do me a favor? Can you call in 5 minutes and I'll be ready? I'm wrapping up with the New York Post.
Yeah. Hey, heck
Five
yeah.
minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Just give me. Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Perfect.
Is that the first time I've been shot down?
That's right, Mental Edge Nation. The amazing Tom Dreesen just said, hey, can I call you fellas back? I'm talking to the New York Post.
Oh, that's exciting, right?
Yeah.
We talking to people
Uh-huh.
who are talking to the New York Post.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
That is pretty cool. I'm glad you got that.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That was pretty.
Yeah. Hello.
Tom Dreesen, are you done talking to those important people over there in New York, my friend?
Yeah. I'm sorry that went longer than I thought it would
Hey.
go, but I'm free now and I'm yours.
It's so exciting, right,
Yeah, it
Junior,
is
to
very
have him
exciting.
here.
Yeah.
So this is who you're talking to, Jay Casey, Tom, and Fernando Lopez from.
The MentalEdge Podcast.
And if you wouldn't mind, Tom, we'd appreciate you saying your name.
And my name is Tom Dreesen.
The legendary
Tom Dreesen.
Tom Dreesen on the
Yeah.
MentalEdge Podcast.
That's
We're
awesome.
so excited.
Are you guys on a speakerphone?
We actually do have you on a phone, and we're recording the phone ambiently.
Okay, but you're not okay. You're on because you sound like you're on a speakerphone. I'm sure I'll be able to hear you, but
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you having trouble hearing us, Tom?
well, you sound like you're in a room, talking on a speakerphone. But I'll be able to hear. We'll be fine. Just speak up a little bit.
Yes, sir, we
I've got
promise.
Good hearing, but I can hear you.
Yeah, in fact, I don't know what you're doing, Tom, but you're doing a lot of things right based on the way you look and the way you speak. You're an incredible example. Could you maybe tell us, Tom, how are you living right to look so good and to be in the industry for 50 years?
Well, I've always thought that stand-up comedy was almost like you had to have the work ethic of an athlete, a professional athlete.
I believe
Because
that. Yeah.
you had to stay in shape. If you're going to go out in front of crowds night after night, and travel on the road, flying here to there, and that you're going to have to be in shape to do that. That's one of the reasons I quit drinking. I used to love to drink beer with the guys and hang out with the guys, but I don't think you can be a stand-up comedian for many years if you don't take care of your health.
Ladies and gentlemen, throughout the course of this interview, Tom drops 50 years worth of experience nuggets, and each time he does, we're going to give you a little ding to help identify what you just heard.
You can't be waking up in the morning with hangovers. I always say the oldest cliche is I got sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to be sharp, especially if you write your own material. And that's another thing. I'll digress here. I don't think you can last as a stand-up comedian for years, for decades, if you don't write your own material.
Amen.
Unless you can afford, if you get so well off that you can afford to have others write material for you.
Yeah.
But it's better when it comes from you.
Yeah.
Your own writing. And so, if you have hangovers and you're out drinking after the shows and stuff like that, you're not preparing yourself for this long-distance journey. And stand-up comedy and show business is not a 10K. It's a 54-mile.
Right.
It's not even a marathon,
Yeah.
So you got to prepare for the distance,
Yeah.
So I tried to stay in shape. I ran marathons. I did things like that,
Wow.
and tried to stay in shape. And then the bottom line of that whole thing is it has to do with genes. Somebody once said to me, whenever people ask me, they'll say, how do you keep your weight, you stay thin all your life? I said, I found a secret to stay thin all your life. And they said, what's that? I said, you have to have parents who are thin all their lives.
That's perfect, man.
Oh, we love it. We love it. And you were talking about I know it's Fernando's. We've got so many questions for you, Tom, because we view you as such an amazing mentor too, and you talked about writing your own material, but where do you find that, Tom? Because it's obvious that it's yours because of your delivery is so natural and your ability to stay on character. You don't break. And the more clips we watched of you, and of course, we've seen you in movies all of our lives. We're in our 40s, so we recognized you immediately. Where does that come from, Tom? Do you take the time to write things down the moment it comes to you? What's your method?
Yeah, of course. The Candid Camera had a terrific line. It said, "Caught in the act of being yourself." That was one of their lines, that they were catching people in the act of being themselves. I say to young stand-up comedians, all of us start out doing an impression of another comedian because we knew that worked. When you're brand new and you're scared and you're going up there, a lot of times you'll go up there and I can watch a new comedian on a Monday night and I'll say, oh, he likes Jay Leno, or she likes Roseanne Barr, or, you can watch when they're new that they're trying to emulate another comedian because they saw that and that worked. Eventually, when you're doing an impression of a stand-up comedian with your material, one night you'll let a little bit of you out, and if it doesn't get a laugh, you pull back in and go back to doing that impression of a comedian, right? But one night you let a little bit of you out and it gets a laugh. Then you let a little bit more of you out and it gets another laugh, and then pretty soon you end up being you on stage. You're caught in the act of being yourself. Wow. And once you become comfortable in your own skin and being comfortable being Tom Dreesen, then from there, all your material comes from your perception of life. About your, and there's certain, if you dissect comedy, it gets boring, but there's certain rules when you're writing a joke. Number one, comedy is 9/10 surprise. The audience laughs because they didn't think you were going to say that or do that. So the setup line has to hide the punchline, or they can't see where you're going, So, and the other rule is there are no victimless jokes. Who's the victim in a joke? Is it you? Is it society? Is it your daughter's dating a punk rocker? Is it, the government, the airlines? What are we talking about here? Somebody's wrong here,
Yeah.
Right.
And then also show them your pain. They love to see your pain, where you failed, where you fell short, Old vaudevillians, way before my time, used to tell me that when you walk out on stage, the first two jokes are on you. I tell public speakers that all the time. I got to give a speech, and can you give me advice? I said, yeah, the first, your opening is something dumb you did. Something dumb you did on the way here, or some mistake you made when you first started out in that industry or whatever. And then that right away, that the audience is on your side. Because they see that you're just like them. You make mistakes. You goof up, and how you get around that.
Yeah, that's great because you immediately relate. They relate to you, right? They start to feel kinship to you.
Sure,
yeah,
because sometimes comedians go out on stage, or a guy and a girl goes out on stage and they look good. They're good-looking person or something, a good-looking girl, and the other women in the audience say, "What does she got to complain about?" But then all of a sudden they find out she has problems with men like you do. She has problems with taxes, with raising children. Pretty soon you realize that she's just like us. Roseanne Barr was a huge hit at first because she spoke from the woman that grew up in a trailer quarter and had problems throughout her whole life. So they identified with her.
Right. Yeah,
remember one of her great lines is she said, men think the uterus is a tracking device. Honey, where's my keys? Honey, where's my hat? Honey, what did I do with those shoes?
Oh man,
you're so quick. Yeah, I got a chance to kind of binge watch a lot of your stand-up comedy before we came to talk to you, and I just had a great time. And Jay was telling me that one of your skits was with Tim Reed, and you guys were the first black-white couple, right? Stand-up comedians that did shows together. I only know him from like WKRP in Cincinnati and a few other TV shows, and was wondering if you were afforded opportunities to be on. I'm guessing you were afforded a lot of opportunities to be on TV shows as well.
Well, Tim. I started out in show business with a comedy team. I had never been on stage alone, nor had Tim.
Okay.
I came out of the service. I after 4 years in the military, I came back to Harvey, Illinois, on the south side of Chicago, where I grew up at.
Nice.
Got married, and kids started coming, and I was wandering from one job to another, and never feeling fulfilled.
Right.
And I kept thinking that this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. I'd be in the bars Friday night drinking with my buddies till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, looking around saying, I don't belong here, but I didn't know where I belong.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I used to
That makes
pray.
sense.
I used to pray. I said, God, show me what I'm supposed to be doing. This can't be it.
Right.
Every job I did good, but I get bored with it. I was,
Yeah.
I was
creative.
a private detective. I was I loaded trucks on a loading dock, and then I became a foreman. I was a foreman in the loading dock, and I'd been a Teamster union guy, and then dropped my card and became a foreman, and just went from job to job. Photography, I was always a bartender part-time, but never really, being fulfilled. And then I joined a civic group called the JCs, the Junior Chamber of Commerce, back in those days. It was young men, 18 to 36 years old, who attacked the problems of the community. And by doing that, they learned leadership training programs. They learned how to serve on a committee, how to chair a committee. They learned how to conduct meetings, Robert's Rules of Order and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I was working on problems of the community, and I realized that one of the biggest problems in the community in those days was that our youth were getting involved in drugs. So I wrote a drug education program teaching grade school children the ills of drug abuse with humor, a concept I had.
Wow. That's
because they weren't teaching drug education at a high school or a college level in those days, let alone at an 8th grade level. I took it to the 8th graders because I felt that we had to catch them before they got introduced to drugs. We found out that so many were already introduced to drugs even before 8th grade.
Yeah.
But now to show you how fate is, I was praying, literally praying to God, what is it I'm supposed to be doing in life? And show me the way. And now at the JC meeting one night, I got up and I proposed this program because I wanted the board to sanction it as a JC project. While I was telling the group what I wanted to do, and they approved of it, after the meeting, a young black man comes up to me. He said, I just joined the chapter. My name is Tim Reed. I just graduated from Norfolk State College, and EI DuPont recruited me into Chicago as a marketing rep, and I joined the JCs. I'd like to help you with that project. And to show you what fate is, I said, gee, I'm sorry, I already got a guy. I had a white friend named John DeBoer. And I said, that I got a guy already. And the next morning, John DeBoer calls me and said, Tom, I got a new job. I can't help you with that project. And I said, gee, what was that black guy's name? Oh, yeah, Tim Reed. I get a hold of Tim. We rehearsed the whole project. We go into the school systems. And the moment we walked in that classroom, I realized what a blessing, because the children were black and white.
Right.
Wow.
They were integrated schools.
Yeah.
So when we went in the classroom, the whole the program, we'd play records, get the kids' attention. Then we would joke off of one another, getting the kids laughing, and then we'd plant the seeds. This program became so successful. The JCs use it in 50 states and in 22 foreign countries through their publications as a model program on how to teach drug education at an elementary school level. And one day, a little 8th grade girl walking out of the classroom said, you guys are funny. You ought to become a comedy team.
Nice.
An 8th grade girl said that to us. And Tim and I, a couple of days later, were talking about it, and we said, you remember what that little girl said? Yeah, would you do that? I don't know, would you do that? And so we start writing what we thought was material. And there were no comedy clubs in those days. This was 1969.
Wow.
So there were no comedy clubs. So, we went in the little jazz clubs, and after the jazz group would take a break, we'd get up and do a set. We bombed a few times, but we finally, got it down. And then we started working all black clubs in the North and South, what they affectionately called the Chitlin Circuit, black-owned, black-operated nightclubs. And, the High Chaparral in Chicago, the Sugar Shack in Boston, the 20 Grand in Detroit. At that time, Motown, in those days, Motown was in Detroit, and all those Motown acts broke their act in at this 20 Grand before they went to Vegas. And we worked there, and then we worked the Club Harlem in Atlantic City before they had gambling in Atlantic City.
Wow.
So, then we did the Playboy Circuit and so forth and so on. So we stayed together 6 years, and then Tim wanted to be more of an actor, and the team split up. We wrote a book a few years back called Tim and Tom, An American Comedy in Black and White.
Nice.
Yeah.
And
nice.
And now there's even talk about that possibly becoming a mini series.
Oh, that's incredible!
That would be great.
1-hour series about Tim and I. I mean, we wouldn't play ourselves, of course, because we're too old. But a young black and a young white guy would play Tim and Tom.
Yeah.
And Tim, as you know, went on to become Venus Flytrap on WKRP, and then he went on another show called Sister.
Yep.
He was the father. He was on another show called Simon.
Yeah, I remember the shows.
Anyhow, he played Downtown Brown or something.
Yeah.
But he we're still the best of friends to this day.
Wow,
that's incredible.
Yeah.
And let's just be honest. As daring as that was, first of all, I do believe I read, Tom, that there was no drug program even at the high school level. That's how incredible it was when you started this. It was the inception of drug programs in America that what you weaved into it began with you two.
Yeah, that's true. And
Awesome.
I, the other thing too, we were way before our time. Dave Letterman read our manuscript before it became a book, and he said, "You should call this book Before Our Time because you guys were way before your time."
Wow.
And he said, and as a comedy team as well. I tell this story often, but at the end of your life, you wonder sometimes, is there anything that I did that Emerson said, "You've lived a good life if you leave the world better than you found it."
That's cool.
I remember, I can't tell you how many times when Tim and I were a comedy team, anywhere there was racial tension, we would go there. We did 11 prisons in 1 year. We went to colleges and high schools. Anywhere there was racial tension, we didn't preach. We'd go do our act and get people laughing,
Yeah.
But I can't tell you how many times this happened, and I'll take this to my grave. It's better than any Oscar, Emmy, any award you could ever possibly give me. I can't tell you how many times a young black kid would come up to us after the show and say, I got a white friend that I'd like to reach out to, but if I do, the brothers will wear me out, man. He said, but after watching you and Tim, I'm going to reach out to my white friend. Then a white guy would come up to us and say, I got a black friend that I'd like to reach out to, but if I do, the white guy's going to, call me names. And he said, but after watching you and Tim up there, I'm going to reach out to my black friend. That happened more than you'll ever know.
That's so awesome.
And Tim and I both agree that was as rewarding as anything that we've ever done in our lives.
Let me just recap here. Tom prays, "God, help me to find my purpose." He creates a drug program that gets implemented into schools, meets a friend of a lifetime, and the rest is history.
Wow. Yeah, I'm so happy you told that story. I wanted just to go back just a little bit because I heard you say Motown. You guys met a lot of these groups when you were doing those little the circuits, and I know that in another interview I heard you mention Smokey Robinson, Natalie Cole, Sammy Davis. The reason I'm saying that is because my dad's a huge fan of those particular people, those artists. Especially, he's like a big Smokey Robinson fan. So when I was young, we were always listening to Smokey Robinson. And did you open up shows with him, or how did that work out?
Oh, sure. I toured with Smokey for years, off and on for years, and still the best of friends. And once a year I would go back to Chicago, and I'd run 26 miles for multiple sclerosis because my sister Darlene had MS, and we called it 26 miles for Darlene. And people would pledge money for every mile I run, and I would bring celebrities back to Chicago with me, Frankie Avalon, Tony Danza, Smokey Robinson, Tim Reed, I'm leaving out people, Eddie Marinaro and Betty Thomas from Hill Street Blues, and and the Chicago Bears and the Cubs. They would run with me, Frankie Valli, and they'd run a mile or a block or 2 blocks, whatever they wanted to run. Smokey's the only one who ran all 26 miles.
Wow, that's awesome. My dad's gonna trip when he hears that. My dad's from the South Side of Chicago, so I'm excited. I'm excited to share this interview with him.
Yeah, that's
where's he from? Where at in the South Side?
I'm not exactly sure because by the time I was born, we grew up on the northwest side by Humboldt Park area, but him and my mom met on the South Side of Chicago. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I do know though my girlfriend's grandfather he owns a place called Torrance Auto Wreckers on the South Side. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Yeah. His name is.
That sounds like it'd be something like in Lansing, Illinois.
Yeah. Where exactly are you from? Harvey.
147 South.
Yeah. My mom. She worked at Olive Harvey College. She retired from Olive Harvey College, which is right off 103rd and Stony Island.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. So you're familiar with that area?
Yeah.
A little bit, he said.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I love that you did the math for me because you're in California and we're about 30 minutes from your stomping grounds.
Yep.
And all I had to do was say, hey, Tom, what time is it going to be for me? And he knew Harvey, Illinois time like that, right?
Exactly.
Because you're still connected, right, Tom? Even though you've had a prolific career. And I want to talk a little bit about your latest book, which seems to span that whole chasm of a career. That I think that book is it called Still Standing, Tom?
Yeah, Still Standing, and the subtitle is My Journey from Streets and Saloons to the Stage and Sinatra.
I want you to know
it's basically
that's so cool.
It's basically like my one-man show. I do a one-man show, a 90-minute show called The Man Who Made Sinatra Laugh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But and sometimes I call it an evening of laughter and memories of Sinatra. But it's basically the theater goes dark and a screen comes out, and Dennis Farina, God rest his soul, narrates about a 3.5-minute film of my life, and then I come out and I do stand-up comedy, and then I go. After about 25 minutes, I go over to a bar where there's a bottle of Jack Daniels, because that was Frank's drink of choice.
That was his
drink. There's a bar on
the
stage, and I tell a funny story, and all the lights go out on stage in the theater, and on stage on the screen, you see Frank Sinatra singing a saloon song. It's 2:45. There's no one in the place except you and me. And so when he gets to the chorus, make it one for my baby and one more for the road, he goes off screen and the light hits me, and a spotlight hits me. And now I'm in a bar, and I've come home, and the audience is in a bar with me. And I tell the audience, the first time I heard that voice, I was 8 years old, shining shoes in a bar in Harvey, Illinois, in the south side of Chicago, and he was on the jukebox. And I take the audience from that little boy hearing Sinatra on the jukebox at 8 years old in Harvey, Illinois, to one day carrying his coffin out of a church in Beverly Hills, California.
Incredible.
So I take them on that journey, and with a lot of laughs, and even there's some, I have them in tears at one point at the funeral. Then I turn right around to a closing monologue and have them laughing again, and then I toast them with the Jack Daniels, and I say, closing the show, I say, I wish for all of you what Frank Sinatra wished for you. The very last song that he ever sang is that the best is yet to come. Good night, everybody. And then Frank is singing, the best is yet to come as people are leaving the theater.
Oh, man. Yeah.
But anyhow, so that's what the book is basically about, too, Still Standing. You can get it on Amazon.com, by the way.
Yeah, I'm excited. And what we're going to do, I want you to know this, is we bought one, and we are going to give it away to a listener that shares this interview. It's a hard copy, over 300 pages. We want all the listeners to know. And the first listener that shares this interview, social media, tag us, tag 10 of your friends, and you're going to get that incredible book. I hope you have room for a 300-page hardcover book.
Yeah, that's exciting.
The book has been doing, it's been just, knock on wood, it's got like over 100 5-star reviews on Amazon.
Yeah.
Right
I
now.
saw 161. It's incredible.
Yeah, 161.
Yeah, people are really responding, real well. And I, through the years, every time, and I advise comedians to do this all the time, journal. Every time that something would happen, even with Tim and Tom in the early days, if it was something poignant or something funny, I would immediately write it down. I'd go back wherever I was and I'd write it down.
I believe that.
And through the years,
awesome.
Doing the, struggling years after the team split up, and then struggling out in the West Coast, trying to get on at the Comedy Store, and eventually, getting on at the Comedy Store. There were many poignant moments and funny moments that I'd write down. Then getting on the Tonight Show, how to make it through. In those days, you had to get on the Tonight Show. And then from there, touring with Sammy Davis, touring with Natalie Cole, touring with Smokey Robinson, touring with, Gladys Knight and the Pips,
nice.
Touring with Mac Davis, Tony Orlando and Don. All these people that I was touring with, Frankie Avalon, my buddy, and James Darren. If anything funny or poignant, I'd write it down. Oh. And then touring with Sinatra, of course, that was a whole new ball of wax.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'd write it. And then eventually I had so many stories that I said, I want to write a book before I head for the great beyond,
You look great, by the way. How old are you right now?
81.
81, man. Yeah, you look amazing.
Awesome.
You keep in great shape too. So all those years of practice really paid off. And the journaling thing, I want to add that's something that I incorporated into my life a few years back. And it's really amazing because we forget more than we remember. So sometimes I'll go back through my journal and I'm like, holy cow, I can't believe that happened. Or this, so I think that was that was awesome on your part that you were able to capture those moments in time. So yeah. That was great.
Well, I'm also, I loved comedy storytelling.
Yeah.
That when I was a little kid, I lived in a shack. We had eight kids, and both my parents were heavy in alcohol at one time. My mom finally quit, but my dad, died an alcoholic, and so we grew up poor. We had, holes in your shoes if your window broke, you stuck a rag in it,
Yeah.
But we didn't have a TV. Everybody had TV. We didn't have a TV, but we had a radio, an old beat up radio. And I used to listen to these radio shows, Jack Benny and Bob Hope and all that stuff. But I remember there was a show called Can You Top This? And it was like 4 comedians, and each one would tell a joke, a story that had a punchline to it.
Yeah.
And I was fascinated by this, as well as the fact that when I was shining shoes in all the bars, my mom was a bartender. I shined shoes in all the taverns in my neighborhood. Frank Polizzi, my uncle, would tell jokes behind the bar.
Okay.
And I was fascinated that how he could, with his inflection and his vernacular, could cause this sound to come out of everybody's body in the bar, this laughter sound, and fill the room like electricity, and unite everybody.
Yes,
I found
I love
that fascinating,
Yes,
and I
right.
said, well, that's what I wanted to do. So, I like telling stories.
Right.
And when I became a stand-up comic, away from Tim, I realized that when you went on the pathway to success in those days was getting to the Tonight Show. No matter where you went in America in 1975, people say, "What do you do for a living?" You say, "I'm a stand-up comedian." The next question out of their mouth was, "Oh yeah, you ever been on Johnny Carson?" And if you hadn't been on Johnny Carson, in the eyes of America, you weren't a comedian. You might want to be one.
Right.
You might going to be one, but you weren't one now. So there was a pathway to stardom as a stand-up comedian. Get on that Tonight Show. Well, how do you get on the Tonight Show? We would watch the other comedians that succeeded there. Because one appearance on the Tonight Show changed your life. Freddie Prinze got a sitcom the following day.
Yeah.
One appearance on the Tonight Show. I did one appearance on the Tonight Show, and a guy named Lee Curlin from CBS saw me. He was watching in New York, and he signed me to a development deal. I was in the unemployment line one day with a wife and 3 kids, and the next day, all my rent and groceries paid for a year. Changed life. So, but we'd watch. How do you get on there? You had to, first of all, do material that could make grandma and grandpa and mom and dad and the kids laugh.
Wow.
You had to
cross generations.
You couldn't work glue.
Yeah.
And the other thing was they did a 6-minute spot, so you had to jokes. 1 minute on a TV show without a laugh is an eternity. So I had to not tell so many stories as well as get to the punchline, set up and punchline, set up and punchline.
Right. Mental toughness plays a big part in being up there, telling the jokes and even like you said, you went from being in line, getting food stamps to the next day landing a deal. That takes a lot of resilience that you were showing.
Well, I was fortunate that having 8 brothers and sisters and growing up on the streets, I don't have a degree from academia, but I got a doctorate from the streets.
Yeah. I love that.
And I was fortunate that those hardships, none of this do I regret. I shined shoes in taverns. I set pins in bowling alleys. I caddied in the summertime.
Right.
I sold newspapers on the corner. And none of this do I regret, but it builds character. Then 4 years in the military, and then going through those hardships and stuff, that you develop a mental toughness, or you don't. A guy named James Kavanaugh wrote a book many years ago. The title was "There Are Some Men Too Gentle to Live Among the Wolves," and I've met men that were just wonderful guys, wonderful men and women, but they didn't have what it takes when you get knocked down to get back up again. When you get knocked down to get back up again, that many of life's failures are men who didn't realize how close they were to success.
Oh, I love that.
Gave up.
Wow.
I love that.
That's a great quote. That's a great quote. I love that.
It's so true, though.
The other one was Thoreau. I love Thoreau once said, "On the plains of hesitation bleached the bones of countless millions who at the dawn of their victory sat down to rest, and resting died."
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's that getting back up, that bulldog tenacity.
Yes.
That survive. Bertrand Russell once said, "There are people in show business who become major stars simply because they didn't have sense enough to quit when they should have."
I love it. And it's all about resiliency. And I think, Tom, what you said is a lot of people will go through struggles, but if they don't make it to the peak, the struggles never seem worth it. But if they push through and they make it, then it all seems worth it. And I love that you said, I've watched you say that this a couple times in a couple different clips and interviews, that you don't really regret the hard stuff you've lived through because you know it made you.
Right.
That's incredible. And there was another corporate event that I saw you speak at, Tom, and this literally gave me chills when I heard you say it. You were sort of combating the embracing of the victimization mentality that people fall into. And you did it because you said, hey, it's easy to fall in this rut. And I'll let you finish if you remember. If not, I've already memorized it. Don't worry. Okay? Because I'm going to use it for the rest of my life. And you said, it's easy to say that I didn't ask to be here.
Yeah. I mean, by the way, first of all, you are not a victim. You're a victor. And I try to tell audience, young kids especially, you're a victor.
Yes.
And I say, that at one of the motivation talks I was giving, a young kid said, that I was joking. I said, "How long do you think you should live with your parents?" Because at that time there was a guy 32 years old that his parents took him 8 years. They got a court order to get him out of the house. He wouldn't leave his parents' house, and they had to get a court order to get him out. And I was doing jokes about that.
Yeah.
But I said to these kids, "How long do you think you should stay with your parents?" And one boy said, "Well, until we're 50 or 60 years old." And I said, "Really?" And
Wow.
some of the people laughed and applauded. I said, "How many believe that?" And several raised their hand. Because what I said was, "Why should you do that?" He said, "Because we didn't ask to be here."
Oh,
Oh man.
And that's when I said, "I don't want to give you a biology lesson, but when the male and the female make love, from the male comes 5 million seeds. Did you know that?" I said, 2.5 million die instantly. The other millions die along the way. And soon there's only 100,000 seeds left. Then there's 50,000. Then there's 10,000 seeds. There's 100 seeds left. There's 5 seeds left. 4, 3, 2, 1, you. And I point at them. I say, you. Don't ever tell me you didn't ask to be here. Bullshit. You fought to be here.
You said you fought to be here.
Yeah. You fought to be. I said, "You're a winner. Applaud yourself." I'm in a room full of winners. Applaud yourself.
Yes.
And they all applaud. I said, "You were born a victor. You're not a victim."
Wow.
And don't let anybody ever tell you you're a victim. Black, white, Jew, Gentile, whatever. You don't let anybody tell you you're a victim, because if you're a victim, then you don't have to succeed. You always have the excuse, "Well, it isn't my fault. See, both my parents are alcoholic, and I was born poor." That's
Right.
BS.
Yeah.
Don't ever let anybody. When you're in a victim, when you get in a victim mode, you have every excuse why not to succeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that was great stuff, man. Great stuff.
Yeah, Tom, I want to read off a few of the other things. I mean, I think everybody who's going to listen to this podcast, they already know your accolades, but I just want to touch on a few real quick here. Over 500 appearances on national television as a stand-up comedian. The Late Show with David Letterman, 1993, hosted the show in David's absence. So you might have mentioned the Tonight Show, but the Late Show was important to you too, I think, Tom. And
I did 61 appearances on the Tonight Show, and I probably did over 50 on Letterman.
Wow.
And because David is a good buddy of mine.
Yeah.
But those shows were important in those days.
Yeah.
And they put pressure on you to keep coming up with new material, because you have to keep reinventing yourself. In the years that I toured with Frank Sinatra for 14 years, and to bring up a point you brought up earlier, I turned down more sitcoms than most comedians get offered in a lifetime.
Wow.
Because I was touring all over the nation with Frank Sinatra, in 45 to 50 cities a year. By the way, I was also playing golf on a tour called the Celebrity Players Tour. It was basketball, baseball, football, hockey, tennis, and show business people that were 10 handicap or below. Wow. So it was Johnny Bench, Mike Schmidt, Mario Lemieux, John Elway, Dan Marino, Michael Jordan. We had 42 Hall of Famers. In show business, it was, Matt Lauer, Brian Gumbel, me, Smokey Robinson, Frankie Avalon, Eddie Marino, a guy named Jack Wagner, who was the best celebrity golfer I ever saw in my life. But my point of this is that here I was, on my hands and knees, shining shoes in a bar, listening to Sinatra when I was a little boy, and now I was flying in this private jet all over the world, performing on stages with him. And then I was, all these athletes that I admired, was in the middle of an arena, performing with them. If you'd have told me when I was growing up, now I'm getting a call in here, and so I hope it doesn't. Yeah, okay, now it'll stop. But you want me to start that story over?
No, you're good.
We actually still came through really good.
Yeah,
Tom.
Okay, if you would have told me when I was a little boy growing up that one day you're going to get into an arena and you're going to compete with the greatest athletes who ever lived in your lifetime, I'd have said, that's impossible. That could never happen. If you'd have told me when I was a little boy shining shoes in bars and hear that guy in the jukebox, one day you're going to fly all over the world with him and perform on stages with him, I would have said that can't happen. That's impossible.
But it did.
But here I was doing that, and Christopher Morley, the author, once said, "Success is living the life you want."
Huh.
And I was living the life I wanted. And so that's why I turned down all those sitcoms and all that stuff, because that here I was living the dream. If I went on a sitcom, I'd end up with 6 spoiled brat,
co-stars.
That after doing 2 episodes, they'd want a limo sent to them and red carpets rolled out wherever they go, and they'd be getting in fights about who got the more lines and more laughs. Because I've done those shows. I did Murder, She Wrote, and I did Columbo's, and I did Facts of Life and WKRP Cincinnati. I performed as an actor on those shows, and it bored me to death. I mean, you'd get there, you're going to shoot a scene. They get you there at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you get in the trailer, and they shoot your scene at 7 o'clock that night. Man. And it just stand-up comedy was just the greatest life.
You weren't. You were never one-dimensional, Tom. You're so multifaceted and multi-talented. So, hey, one of the final things we wanted to ask you, and we just can't thank you enough for this time, Tom, was could you pinpoint somebody in your, I know Frank Sinatra is incredibly important to you because you constantly have clips where you share these incredible nuggets. And you can include him or you can make him the one, but who would you say was the primary influence in your career and in your ability to be sustainable?
Well, I give motivation speeches sometimes around the country, and I'll say, before this is over with, I'm going to speak on 4 subjects: perception, visualization, self-talk, and develop a sense of humor. And I'll elaborate on those 4 points.
Okay.
But I said, at the end of this motivation talk, I'm going to give you the secret. Everybody's looking for the secret.
Right.
I'm going to tell you what it is. And at the end of it all, when I get done, I say, the secret is you. You're the secret.
Secret sauce.
You're the secret.
Yes.
If it is to be, it's up to me. I read that years ago, and I put it on my desk and look at it every day. You got to go out there and you got to get it. And I read something many years ago from a guy who said, all my life I searched for my hero, and I found him. My hero is me.
Nice.
Now that sounds egotistical, but I don't mean it that way.
Yeah, we get it.
If it is to be, it's up to you to go out and get it and fight for it. And if you believe in it, don't let anybody change your, kill your dream. We're only here for a blink of an eye, guys.
Yeah.
For a blink of an eye. I was on a plane one time. After I started doing the Tonight Shows and everything, for years you struggle and you don't get work and you're begging for work and you're praying for work. And then all of a sudden I was working all the time. I was doing Dinosaur, Merv Griffin, Mike Douglas, Johnny Carson, Midnight Special, Rock Concert, Soul Train, American Bandstand. I was doing all those shows. I was touring with all those artists. I was one day on an airplane heading east, and I looked out the window and I saw myself on a plane going west. That's when I knew I was working.
Man!
But on that plane, I read a magazine article. I was bored with. I read everything but the air sickness bag, and I picked up this magazine article. It was about anthropology, and Dr. Carl Sagan, who I had done the Tonight Show with. I really found him fascinating, and Johnny Carson loved him too. Carl Sagan, if you've never heard anything about him, download him sometimes. He's just amazing mind.
Will do.
He's no longer with us, but anyhow, but he was talking about anthropology. And I'm reading this magazine, and it said dinosaurs ruled this planet for 250 million years. And man, in his present form, from Neanderthal to Cro-Magnon to now, has ruled this planet maybe 100,000 years or something like that. And I'm reading it, and he's saying this planet has been here for 10 billion years, and it's going to be here for 10 billion more before the sun destroys the Earth. That the Earth is moving closer to the sun, and one day the sun will destroy this planet. And I put that magazine down, and I said, this planet was here 10 billion years before I was born. Not thousands, not millions, billions.
Right.
And it's going to be here for 10 billion after I die. Right. That means my lifetime on this planet is a blink of an eye. Right. It's a speck of sand. It's over.
Yes.
That you would spend one moment of that blink of an eye bitching and moaning and cursing your lot in life is an absurdity. That you would spend one moment of that blink of an eye doing a job you hate, going to a job you hate every day, is spitting in your master's face and saying, I don't appreciate this great gift of life. Every day is a celebration. Yes. Every day, what wonderful thing am I going to do today? Whose life might I change? Who might change mine?
Yeah.
You know, if someone, every day you open your eyes and there was a knock on the door, and every day you open your eyes and someone gave you this gift, this original gift, and unlike none before, how much would you appreciate the gift? How much would you appreciate the giver of the gift? Right. Every day it's a celebration. Every day is, and comedians are the luckiest of them all because they're healers.
Yeah.
And I'll wrap with this unless you guys want to talk more. But that we've always known laughter is a psychological deterrent. People know that because they say, well, if the brain can't think of two thoughts at the same time. So if you're watching a comedian, you're not thinking of your problems if you're watching a comedian laughing. So we've always known it's been a psychological deterrent. But because of a man named Norman Cousins, who was the editor of Saturday Review, he had a terminal illness, and he was put in the hospital, and the doctors told him he was going to die, that he had some sort of heart condition, that he was going to die. And it was because of stress, because of negative input in his life, stress. He laid in the hospital, and he thought, if negative input made me ill, then positive input should make me well.
Yes.
So he checked out of the hospital.
That's awesome.
And he'd only watch I Love Lucy reruns, Candid Camera, Three Stooges, the Marx Brothers. And he would not watch the evening news or read the papers and listen to comedy albums. He lived 27 years after the doctors told him he was going to die.
Wow, what a great story.
Because of him, UCLA did research, and they found out that when the human body laughs, the brain releases endorphins into the bloodstream that are chemicals. And there's an actual chemical change comes over you. That's why after a hearty laugh, you've laughed so hard, tears are running down your eyes, and you go, oh, and this sense of well-being comes over you. Your body's gone through an actual chemical change. So laughter is not only psychologically a deterrent, it's physiologically therapeutic. So therefore, comedians are physicians of the soul.
Amen.
So you can call me Dr. Dreesen if you'd like.
Dr. Dreesen?
Oh my goodness. Man. Doc, this has been, I can feel the energy. I wish I was like in the same room with you, but I can still feel the energy right through this line.
Powerful.
Yeah, it's super powerful. And I know that I'm already going to listen to this podcast at least 3 or 4 times before it goes out, just because you drop so many gems. And I mean, I am so grateful that I had the opportunity to talk to you, and I'm a blessed man.
Yeah, MentalEdge listeners, please go get Mr. Dreesen's new book.
Yes.
And it is called Still Standing, My Journey from the Streets and Saloons to the Stage. And this is why, and Sinatra, and this is why, guys, he never embraced a heritage that he could have used for victimization mentality. Instead, he recognized it as the thing that propelled him to greatness. Tom, we love this conversation, and we love you. You're an incredible man, and thank you so much. And the last thing we want to say to you is please have an incredible Thanksgiving, Tom.
Yes, Tom. Thank you so
Same
much.
to you.
All
Same to you guys, for sure. I really appreciate talking to you.
Yeah.
All right.
And call me again if you'd like.
All right.
Definitely.
Thank
we
you,
appreciate
Tom.
it, Tom. You have a great day.
Okay.
All right.
Take care, guys.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Holy cow. That guy is an amazing... It's on fire.
It's on fire.
It's on fire. This guy is... Holy cow.
man. And I love, there's so many things about people like him that can teach people, and they all talk about not giving up. They all talk about embracing their past.
Having a victor's mentality.
A victor instead of victim.
Yes, I love that. I mean, all the ways he used his life, to show us how, oh my goodness, it was incredible.
Yeah.
So excited.
I don't have much more to say.
No,
I'm just going to mentally download what just went through my head.
That was pretty crazy.
This is definitely a special episode of the Mental Edge Podcast. And my name is Jay Wakasey.
I'm Fernando Lopez Jr.
And this has been
the Mental Edge Podcast.
We out.
Well, all right. That'll just about wrap it up. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Mental Edge Podcast. Your host, Fernando Lopez Jr.
Oh, he's so handsome.
And his trusty sidekick, Jay Wakasey.
Hey, that's me.
Seriously appreciate you spending time with us tonight. Remember, if you like this content, the most flattering thing you can do is like and share.